What if you could clone yourself, or at least clone your business? That's the experiment I've been running with a project I call PulseWP. You've probably heard me mention it before, and today I want to take you behind the scenes of how I've been building a 90% AI-driven version of my blog, podcast, and soon-to-be newsletter. More importantly, I want to show you how you can start thinking about building your own AI-powered content business. Now, I know what you might be thinking, another AI app, do we really need that? And you're not wrong to be a little skeptical, I still am. I believe a lot of the AI tools we see today, including my own experiment, are essentially features that will eventually be baked into core AI systems like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. The ability to summarize news, generate a podcast, and send you alerts, that's likely going to be standard stuff. So why build this? Well, two reasons. First, I'm what you might call a vibe coder these days. I don't know. I'm a power user of technology, sure. Like I really get how software works, how the internet works, how infrastructure works, but I'm not a hardcore developer. The project is a way for me to understand the capabilities and limitations of AI in real time. This is a whole fleeting thing, and I kind of know that. Second, and this is the core of it all, I'm kind of competing with myself on purpose. I love creating content, podcasts, videos, growing our community at the WP Minute. I'm incredibly bullish on the human approach. Like, I love humans, and I love humans inside content. PulseWP is my AI doppelganger of sorts. It's a baseline for me anyway to measure AI's progress against my own. Can an AI-generated version of me serve your needs as well as the real thing, like what I'm doing day to day? That's the question that I'm trying to answer, really. I want to break down the exact tech that I'm using. That way you can get a sense of the whole stack. For anyone out there thinking about doing something similar, this is sort of the blueprint that I've used to build what I've built. So the foundation is Replit. Think of this as my all-in-one command center, right? If you haven't seen any of these tools yet, Replit is this all-inclusive coding platform. It's where I write the code, host the database, and deploy the app to the web. It does all the hosting stuff too. The best part is its AI coding assistant on the mobile app is amazing. It actually lets me work from anywhere. The front end of PulseWP is not WordPress. Surprisingly, it's React. This is a JavaScript library I use to build the whole user interface. It's a problem factor for me, though, because it's a single-page app, which means it's fast and responsive, but really not great in SEO, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The whole styling is done by Tailwind, CSS, and ShadCN. This is what makes a site look clean and modern. Tailwind it's sort of the utility-first CSS framework that lets you build custom designs without writing a ton of custom CSS, and ShadCN provides sort of all these great UI components that work right on top of it. And it's not the best, but it's all I can do. The brains of the whole operation is the OpenAI API. This is the core AI I use for everything, including summarizing articles, categorizing content, writing the weekly recap posts, and generating podcast scripts. The voice that replicates my podcast is powered by 11 Labs API. This is how I clone the voice. It makes it sound just like me. Trained a model on my own recordings, and now I pass that to a script that's automatically generated, and then it automatically creates that podcast for me. There's a lot of things I would do in the future as I outgrow Replit. I kind of am. Supabase is really popular. It would be a replacement to Replit's database, and especially if I want to move hosting and the data off of Replit. Supabase, which is a Firebase alternative, it's incredibly powerful, and it's really easy to work with. And those are some tools that I might use in the future. There's plenty of other things, but I just want to let you know about it. Okay, so that's the tech. So how do you actually build this like if you're trying to be a professional web developer, but you're not? That's what I am. This is what I call the vibe coding stuff. We're all kind of familiar with that. It's about having an idea and using AI as your co-pilot to bring it to life. And here's how you can do it. What I wanted to do is jump into the back end and skip the monologue and just give you a hands-on preview of how this is all put together and what my typical vibe code session is like inside of Replit, and give you a sense of how I put this all together. I'm not going to go through each, obviously, step of how I put this together. That would be an insanely long video. What I'm hoping to do with this video is to encourage you to start to experiment with vibe coding and kind of learn and feel around. It's just a bunch of human phrases. I'm prompting, I need this feature. The goal is to have an RSS aggregator app. It's to summarize articles, display it in a grid, make it mobile friendly, working through all of the paces as you sort of vibe code your way through it and test it and refine the app. But inside of Pulse, you have, your dashboard here. Right now I have the file manager open and the preview window of the actual app. So this environment here is the Replit local environment. And then you have the production app, which is live. And any of the changes that you're making here are not actively shipped to the live site, right? And most of the time I'm working here within the Replit agent and prompting it to build the features that I'm looking for. So it has a whole history. I can roll back to certain points that I've made. So I spend a lot of my time just talking to the agent. If I need to really hit a particular file and like there's something I know I am absolutely 100% sure like it doesn't need the context of my entire app to fix a thing, I'll use the assistant. And the assistant is, from what they tell me, is more accurate and faster, but it doesn't help with the broader context of your entire app like the agent does. So if you're building an additional feature, you want to work with the agent because the agent tends to know your entire app. Whereas if you're working with the assistant, it's about being, the way that I use it, in a single file, trying to make a modification. That might be like the way that an article page looks. Like when I'm working here, I'm saying, no, I really want to adjust like where this icon is moved to. Like I don't need the agent to do that. It doesn't need the whole context of the app. It just needs to be in the assistant, okay? What does PulseWP do? I'll give you a quick walkthrough of that, and then we'll get back to sort of the overview video on all of this stuff. Here's the home page. It lists all of the articles that are new in that particular day, so it's sort of just time-stamped. This was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because this is actually getting posted in Australia, so it's using the local time over there. And you can page through the content. I have all of the sources that I'm pulling from, and these are the major sources that I follow for WordPress industry news. And it does two things. It'll start by checking to see if the WordPress REST API is available. And if it is, then it'll use the WordPress REST API to access that data, that content, and then it'll bring it all into a database. So I'm actually saving everything inside of the Replit database so that I can do other things later. Here it is. So it saves everything in my database. It saves, obviously, the title, the link, the content, publication date, all of this stuff. It's creating Twitter posts for me. It's doing AI processing. Some of the stuff I'm not using anymore. I need to clean it up. It's categorizing it for me. It's doing a bunch of stuff, but I'm saving it all to the database so that I can analyze and work with this stuff later. And Replit has a great sort of database view. It's not super technical. It's not as good as, let's say, Supabase, but it is pretty powerful for my needs right now. So it'll, for example, pull in this article. This is all AI summarized, so this gives the reader the ability to read the summary. I also then send this out to my Slack channel, all built into the logic of this app, to notify my Slack community at the WP Minute, hey, here's a new article and here's the summary. If you want to go read it, here's the link, and it goes and it sends that out. So I do a whole bunch of things here, and I can do things like write in my own tags if I wanted to as a logged in user. I can regenerate this analysis. So if I read this, I said, wait a minute, that didn't summarize that correctly. I built this in here to regenerate that analysis, and it'll just give me a new summary. I've built out a bunch of administrative features in the back end of this that helps me, run the site. So of course, like adding feeds, you can see here that some don't have the REST API available, so they default to the RSS feed, and others with the REST API indicate that. I can always modify these names and feed link, turn it off or on, delete it, and it'll tell me when it last fetched that particular feed. Because as I was building this out, what I was running into were just a lot of issues of things not syncing, It would default to RSS when it could have used the OpenAI, or excuse me, the REST API to connect to that data. And a lot of this stuff I built out of necessity. Like I needed to know if I had errors, so I didn't have to check the logs all the time. I wanted to just be logged in as a user and see this stuff. I have all of my prompts in an interface so that I don't have to jump into the code every single time to modify that, for example. So managing articles, this is just a quick way for me to see all of the articles that are being pulled into the system, and then I have a chance to edit this. So if I needed to edit a title for whatever reason, AI didn't make the right title or didn't pull in the right title from the feed, if I need to modify the slug or the content of the summary, I could do that right here. You see that I also have impact scores. These are ways that the system puts weights for which pieces of content are the most important. Because really the magic of all this, and let me just go back to the homepage real quick, is this weekly post. And this is the part that's really replicating a lot of the years of work that I've done, which is reading and tracking all the news and then writing a weekly post about it or creating a podcast about it. And this is all happening automatically through all of these pieces that I've put together, right? Consuming all the content, putting it into a database, weighting it, and then saying, hey, the top three, like if there are what I call impact scores, if you have threes, then prioritize all the threes. If there's no threes, use twos, and then one is sort of last in line. So as long as there's threes and twos throughout the week of impact, then we'll write a summary about those articles first and foremost. And then all of the other posts get just generally categorized, and then they're just listed here. And then what will happen is I'll send this out to 11 Labs to actually create a podcast episode of this article. So this is really the magic starts to happen, is where now I've cloned my voice to also read a podcast. And then this will be shipped off to Transistor eventually as I'll build out those features. So now let me just go in the back and I'll just show you how I can manage that. But before I do that, I'll show you, I've built in some other administrative buttons right here. So at any point I can edit these articles. I can click edit and I can come in, I can change the title. I can change the content inside the box there if I see something that needs to be done. I can regenerate the image, I can regenerate the title, or I can reprocess the whole article as a whole. So this gives me those quick one-click buttons to just make new content. But if we go into manage articles and we go to weekly summaries, inside of the weekly summary, I have all of the content for that weekly summary. I can modify that here. And then here is where I can modify the podcast that gets sent out. So it creates its own separate script that is more of like a spoken script than it is a newsletter script. So I can edit it, or I can just generate the podcast with a click of a button. So I can play this. Welcome to your weekly update about WordPress, powered by PulseWP, spoken by an AI avatar. So that's a quick overview of what PulseWP does and sort of the big parts to the project. I've done some other fun things like add in analytics, where we can track to see which publishers are publishing when and kind of give you a snapshot of like who's the most active in the space. You can kind of compare these publishers. It's just a fun little tool. And then I've also built in this like presenter mode. So for those of you that are like me who are doing a lot of like presentations about WordPress news, you can kind of go through and highlight these if you're doing like a screen share. It's super rudimentary right now, but just something that I'm playing with. Even the featured image is all created by ChatGPT through the OpenAI API to generate these images. And I'm keeping them like super abstract and subtle because I don't really love AI generated images, at least from what I can do with the API. So that's what I'm building with Pulse, and hope that encourages you to also try the same. And that's PulseWP. It's just like an ongoing experiment. There's still a lot that I want to do. I plan to integrate more content sources like podcasts, YouTube channels, and eventually social media stuff. I also need to figure out the best way to build out the newsletter component, which I have some ideas for. Like I could probably easily integrate this into Kit to automate the newsletters, but that could get pretty pricey. And there's other services I could use for like transactional email. But all of this, building all of this anyway, has been a fascinating journey. It's my way of stress testing my own business and staying ahead of the curve, I hope. And I think the core ideas here are transferable to any niche, like local news, finance, your favorite sports team. Like I think you can run with this idea for many different sectors of content. So I'd love to hear what you think. If this is something that you found useful, let me know in the comments. Thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want more. What features would you like to see next in PulseWP if you're a WordPress news junkie like myself? Again, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.